Guys, so welcome back. So this is going to be the lesson where we're looking at Photoshop in relationship to people who are doing system administration for media companies or creative companies. So the basic idea is to understand it, not to learn it in one lesson, but to understand what's going on. So let's take a look. It's a creative application. We have a picture, right? So on the left, you have different tools, different selection tools. And I'm going to explain that basically in Photoshop, one of the big challenges is how do you select? Like, for example, if you want to make the car instead of yellow, if you want to make it red, how do you select that, right? So like, let's say on the right, I have the layers, right? So I have the layer where I selected everything and I made the car red, right? So, but in order to do that, you have to be able to select what it is you want to affect, either the color range or somehow manually select. So let me hide that. So let us continue to look. So we looked at the tools on the left. They're menus, traditional menus, how to apply different filters. And I'm not going to go in depth as far as what the menus are. And here, the power of the Photoshop. So basically, this is the layering compositing. And the way you can think about it is you have transparencies laying on top of each other. So let me hide my picture so it's easier for you. Let me hide the video, right, so that you can see entire interface. Okay, so I think like this is better. So this is the layers menu. See where it's saying layers? So what we're going to do in this menu is let me just enable the background, and you'll see what we're talking about. Right? So this is the original picture. When I imported it, it was just the background, right? So this is how it looks in the beginning, right? Then I said, well, wouldn't it be cool if we can change the background? If we can have several different backgrounds. For example, I imported this picture, right? So we have this picture of I think it's Venice, to be honest with you. Now I'm not even sure, right? So let's say that we want to deal, it could be something else. We'll have to double check what it is. But basically, it's a cool European city, right? So then you can have a background like this. And by the way, notice that whatever is on top, that's the layer which you're seeing, right? So then if I enable this one and I drag this one on top, let me change it like this, right? So now we're seeing just the girl with the car, right? So whatever layer is higher, that's the layer which you see in first. So if I drag it down, now we're seeing this layer, and then if you click on this little eye, it hides it, right? So you can show or hide layers, right? So let's see the composition which I built for this lesson. Let's see what we're dealing with. So my idea was that, wouldn't it be cool that instead of this, we can cut out the background? So the picture with a cut out background looks like this. Whenever you see the checkerboard, it means it's transparent. And this is not the cleanest image, but that's not the point how to make clean selections and how to cut something out. There are different tools. You can select, for example, you can select the color range. So if the car is mostly yellow, you can select the color range, right? If there's a continuous color like black, you can select just black. But at this point, so for example, let me show you this magic wand. So if I click, you see it's selecting the color range, it's selecting everything black, right? If I click on yellow, it's selecting yellow. But it's more than that, because a lot of times it's not easy to select something. So if you hit Control D, it will deselect it, right? So right now I'm just explaining you the basics of what's going on. So we have the picture, and somehow we managed to cut out the background, right? So we cut out the background. Now, if I enable one of the pictures, so now we composite in two pictures, right? So you have the girl with a cutout background. It sits on top. Imagine it to be like a transparency, right? And in the background, there's a cool European city. I assumed it's Venice, but I'll need to double check what it is. It could be something else, right? But that's not even the point. So now you're seeing the power of it, right? If I enable this one, then she's in Hawaii or wherever this beautiful, magnificent sunset is, right? So now you're starting to understand the power of layers in Photoshop, right? So if I'm able to select just the car and change it to a different color, now we're doing this. So let me show you how I'm doing that, right? So right now I'm on the color on the layer, which is just the car. Let me hide everything. So this is just the car, right? I cut out everything else. So now that we have it selected, we can affect this We can enable this back, right? So let's say we want to make the car blue. Let's say we're making a car commercial, and the producer said, you know what, we wanted first to advertise the yellow car, but then we decided it doesn't make sense, and especially in this background, wouldn't be cool if the color was blue, right? So that's no problem, right? We go to Image, Adjust, and we can go to Hue and Saturation, right? Let me bring the dialog box, right? So dialog box looks like this, right? So now, when I'm changing the hue, right? So now the color is blue, right? And we can shift it to any color. So as long as you can select what you want, you can easily change the colors, right? You can make it some kind of like green or purple or whatever it is you want. So red we already tried, purple. So maybe this kind of like navy blue, whatever, right? You can also make the car almost black and white. You can make it gray, right? So now we're affecting saturation. We can make it the colors brighter, or we can make them duller, right? So now she's kind of like looking at the cool looking gray color, right? And you can also make it lighter or darker. So we can make it kind of like completely dark and she's like driving a black car, or we can make it that she's driving like almost like a white car, right? And now we can bring a little bit of color and it's gonna have like a cool looking metallic thing, right? So you got the idea. So basically, Photoshop, you can have different selection tools. You can cut out different layers from the background, and you can, once you cut it out, you can affect it, right? So let me enable a couple of more layers, so just to show you what's going on. So I made this kind of looking layer to have a background. So, and I called it Photoshop Vanish Strip, right? So that's the basic idea of what you can do in Photoshop. As far as like selection, you can select any element. For example, if I wanted to make the text smaller, right? So I'm on this layer. If I hit Control T, right? You see this selection. And now I can make the text, I can move it around. Right? So let's say I make it huge. And you can make it transparent. So Photoshop Vanish Strip. And now it's kind of like overlaying. Let me hide this guy. We don't need this anymore. And I need to double click to select it. Let me hide this guy. We don't need that anymore. You also have in Photoshop different modes, how the two layers overlap with each other, right? So right now we're in let's say if we select lighten. So in other words, it looks at the background color, it looks at the foreground color, and it selects some kind of like overlay mode, right? So right now it's kind of like semi-transparent, and here we can control the transparency. We can make it even more blend in, right? So we can make it something like this, right? So maybe like a cool looking color like that. Photoshop Vanish Strip. I think it would look better on the background because it's obstructing the view of the face. So I think we are conditioned to kind of like, but you see here, it's difficult to see it. So let us play with a different overlay mode. Maybe luminosity, no. Maybe difference. Yeah, so maybe something like this, right? So you can have a title like that too. So basically it's a creative application. It's a creative application with different layers. You don't like this one, we select this one. So, what you need to understand that you editing images, you have tools, you have menus, and here you have layers. So if one day somebody's saying, oh, the server is not working, the file is corrupt, you guys, you computer guys, you broke everything, what did you do, right? So you have to understand that you're looking at the layered composition. Or the user complains, you know what, I opened Photoshop and nothing is working, nothing is there, I'm getting like something like a screen, nothing is working. What the hell is going on? What did you guys break, right? So once you understand the basics of what we're dealing with, that this is a layer-based compositor, you can come in and you can say, you know what, let me test something. Let me click on this. Oh, the picture is there. It's just you probably selected the wrong layer, right? So then you enable the layers you want, right? We enable this. Or enable that, whatever it is we need to do, and now it all makes sense, right? So the basic understanding of creative applications is also important. So let me bring back my picture so I can give you some closing remarks. So basically, what can you do, right? You can go to adobe.com and download a trial. Or you can use open source application like GIMP. Something like that will work too. If you're doing something creative and you need creative tools, especially for students, I think these days they have discounts that you pay in them monthly, maybe like $20, $30, and you have access to all of the Adobe creative tools, meaning Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Premiere for editing pictures, Adobe After Effects for layered compositing, the same thing but dealing with videos, right? So I would highly advise it because Adobe Photoshop and all of the Adobe tools, they're standard in the industry. Adobe After Effects is a standard for compositing. They're more powerful, not based compositors, but basically if you want to do something serious, you need that. And basically you download Adobe Photoshop and you get some kind of picture. You can have a super simple picture. It doesn't have to be something like this. You can have a picture like this and you just learn what you can do, how you can change the colors. You go, let's say, image, adjust. Let me go to this layer. We go to image, adjust. Let's say we're going to go hue and saturation, right? So this is a super cool tool, like even without knowing much, you can play with it, you can see, you can create different looks, right? Then you can make it into black and white photo, right? You can make it kind of like something like this, you can make it something very dark, or if it's night. So you can have the ball playing like with Adobe Photoshop, and it's going to be super cool and a super interesting thing. You can shift the colors, you can make it kind of psychedelic colors, right? So now it kind of looks like a psychedelic poster. Now, then you can dial back. So you can have fun for hours in Photoshop. And also what you're going to learn is that you're going to learn how to use layered-based compositor, right? And how to create different compositions and how to help people one day when they need... and all of the concepts which are in Photoshop are going to translate in After Effects. When you deal in not layers of... when you're dealing with layers of video instead of layers of photos, right? So right now it's a picture, it's one frame, but once you have 30 frames per second or 24, then it becomes a video-based compositor. This is a picture-based compositor or image manipulation. So download Photoshop, play with it. It's a lot of fun. It's a very powerful application. And if you're a creative person, you're going to love it. Like, it's a standard tool, and you can put it in your resume that you know Photoshop, so you can support creative people. So thank you very much for watching. That's your homework. Try to play with Photoshop. There are also open source tools like GIMP and a lot of like different variants which kind of look like Photoshop. As long as you have selection here, you have menus, different like filters, and you have layers. It has to have layered-based system. If you're not dealing with layers, then you're fooling yourself. So you can have some kind of open source alternatives to Photoshop. GIMP is one of the most widely used, but it's missing some features, and not that you cannot do it, but you can do it. But I would advise to become familiar with Photoshop. So download, play with it, and that's the introduction to Photoshop. Thank you very much for watching.